How a robbery in Manila turned me into a girl. My name is Daniel, a 20-year-old college student from Liverpool, and I've always had a passion for exploring new cultures. After saving up for years, I finally decided to take a gap year to travel across Asia. My first stop, Manila, the bustling capital of the Philippines. I arrived with high hopes, eager to immerse myself in the vibrant city and experience something far removed from the familiar streets of home. I had no idea that my life would change forever. The first few days were incredible. I wandered the city streets, sampling local street food and marveling at the historical sites like Intramuros and Rizal Park. The chaos of jeepneys weaving through traffic, the scent of grilled meat from street vendors, and the warm smiles of the locals made me feel welcome. But one evening, everything took a sharp, unexpected turn. It was late, around 9 p.m., and I was walking back to my hostel from a small market I had visited on a quiet side street. The neighborhood was darker than I had realized, and as I passed an alley, I suddenly felt a sharp tug on my backpack. Before I could react, two men appeared out of nowhere, shoving me against a wall. My head spun from the force as they tore my backpack from my shoulders, rifling through my pockets for my wallet and phone. Within moments, they were gone, leaving me bruised, shaken, and completely alone. I stood there, stunned, my heart pounding in my chest. I had no passport, no money, no phone, nothing. It was like a nightmare. My dream trip had turned into a disaster in the blink of an eye. Disoriented and afraid, I stumbled into a nearby park and collapsed onto a bench, trying to collect myself. I was thousands of miles from home with no idea what to do next. Panic began to creep in. What if I couldn't get help? What if I couldn't find a way out of this? That's when Maria found me. She was a Filipino woman in her late 20s, with short black hair and a confident stride. She must have noticed me sitting there, hunched over and clearly in distress. Without hesitation, she walked up to me, her dark eyes full of concern. "You look like you've been through hell," she said softly, kneeling beside me. I tried to speak but found that the words caught in my throat. All I could do was nod. Maria didn't ask many questions. She didn't need to. Instead, she extended her hand and helped me to my feet. "Come with me," she said gently. "You can stay at my place for a few days, figure things out." I was in no position to refuse. Her kindness was unexpected, but in that moment, I had no other options. I followed her through a maze of narrow streets until we arrived at a small apartment tucked away in an alley. The space was modest, but it felt safe, and that was all that mattered. Once inside, I explained my situation to her. I told her everything: how I had been robbed, how I had no way of contacting my family back home, how I felt completely lost. Maria listened patiently, never interrupting, her face thoughtful. After I finished, she stood up and began preparing a simple meal of rice and vegetables, handing me a plate when it was ready. "You can stay here as long as you need," she said, her voice calm. "We'll figure something out." That night, as I lay on the small couch in her living room, the reality of my situation hit me hard. I was stranded in a foreign country with no passport, no money, and no immediate way to get home. But I was also struck by Maria's generosity. I barely knew her, yet she had taken me in without hesitation. In that moment, she was my only lifeline. The next morning, Maria woke me up early. "You'll need some clothes," she said, rummaging through her small wardrobe. She pulled out a bundle of soft, feminine garments and handed them to me. I stared at them, confused. "I can't wear this," I said, glancing down at the floral sundress in my hands. Maria shrugged. "They're all I have," she said simply. "But trust me, it's safer for you this way. You'll blend in better with the locals. No one will look twice at a girl walking down the street." I hesitated, unsure. The idea of dressing like a woman was completely foreign to me, but the truth was, I didn't have many options. Reluctantly, I agreed. With Maria's help, I slipped into the sundress. The fabric was light and airy, brushing against my skin in a way that felt strange but oddly comfortable. She handed me a pair of sandals and a light cardigan to complete the look. When I caught my reflection in a small mirror hanging on the wall, I barely recognized myself. My slim frame and delicate features made the transformation surprisingly easy. I looked convincing. I wasn't Daniel anymore. I was Daniela. Maria smiled at me approvingly. "You look great," she said, grabbing a brush and gently running it through my short, disheveled hair. "We just need to soften your look a bit." She gave me a crash course in basic makeup, just enough foundation to even out my skin tone, a hint of blush to give my cheeks some color, and a swipe of mascara to make my eyes pop. When she was finished, I stared at the mirror once more, stunned by the transformation. I didn't just look like a woman. I looked like a local. It was surreal. For the next few days, I stayed at Maria's apartment, venturing out only occasionally and always as Daniela. The more time I spent dressed this way, the more comfortable I became. I began to notice that I moved differently when I was Daniela. My posture was softer, my steps lighter. It felt like a strange kind of freedom, as if dressing this way allowed me to escape the trauma of the robbery. "You're a natural," Maria commented one morning as she watched me tie my hair back into a loose ponytail. "You could make some real money if you wanted to?" I frowned. "What do you mean?" Maria worked at a local bar in the evenings, a lively spot known for its drag shows and performers. She suggested that I join her and see if I could find work as a performer. At first, I was reluctant. The idea of getting up on stage, dressed as Daniela in front of a crowd of strangers made my stomach twist with nerves. But Maria was persistent, and the reality of my situation weighed heavily on me. I couldn't stay at her apartment forever, and I needed money to survive. The first night I stepped onto the stage, my heart pounded in my chest. The lights were blinding, and the crowd's murmurs buzzed in my ears like a swarm of bees. I was terrified. But then the music started, and something inside me shifted. I moved with the rhythm, my body swaying to the beat, and soon the nerves began to fade. By the time the song ended, the crowd was cheering, and I was flushed with adrenaline. From that moment on, Daniela wasn't just a disguise anymore, she was becoming a part of me. Weeks turned into months, and I continued performing at the bar. I became a regular, earning enough money to support myself and even contribute to Maria's rent. The more I embraced my new identity, the more confident I became. Daniela gave me a freedom I hadn't known I was searching for, a way to step outside of my old life and explore a side of myself I had never acknowledged. Maria and I grew close during that time. She became my confidant, my guide in this new world I was navigating. One night, after a particularly successful performance, we sat on the balcony of her apartment, sipping beers and watching the city lights twinkle in the distance. "You're different now," Maria said quietly, her eyes thoughtful as she looked at me. I nodded, understanding what she meant. It wasn't just that I looked different. I felt different. Stronger, more sure of myself. In my old life, I had always been shy and uncertain, hiding behind the expectations of others. But as Daniela, I felt powerful. I felt seen. As time passed, I began to think more seriously about my future. I had started taking hormones with Maria's encouragement. The changes were subtle at first. My skin became softer, my hips a little rounder. But over time, the transformation became more noticeable. My voice softened, my body curved in new ways. I was becoming Daniela, not just in appearance, but in every sense of the word. I thought about my family back in Liverpool. They had no idea what had happened to me. Would they even recognize me now? How would they react if they saw me like this? The thought of returning home as Daniel seemed like a distant memory, one that I wasn't sure I wanted anymore. Eventually, I made the decision to stay in Manila. I had built a new life here, a life where I was free to be who I truly was. Daniel may have started this journey, but it was Daniela who had found happiness, acceptance, and a sense of belonging. And so, I stayed. I continued performing, my reputation growing with each show. Daniela had become a sensation in Manila, and I had finally found peace with who I was. Looking back, I realized that being robbed on that dark street had been the catalyst for my transformation. What had started as a disaster had turned into the most liberating experience of my life. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the story, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more cross-dressing adventures. Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think. Until next time, stay fabulous and keep embracing your true self. See you soon.